Daddy eats lots. Daddy eats lots. Daddy eats lots. Munch, munch, munch.
Hello and welcome to Daddy Eats Last, where we discuss the challenges of being a man in modern society and whatever the hell that even means. I'm Kane, and joining me today, as usual, to chat man stuff are Ryan and Maddie. Firstly, gents, how was the weekend?
Good, buddy. I just got back from a work meeting, so very peculiar, bit of work on Sunday night. But we were in Geelong this weekend and ran a 17k trail run this morning in Applesea. Yeah, good way to start the Sunday. Very different to a normal sleep in and Sunday brunch, but training for a couple of obstacle races coming up in November. So it was good to get out of the city, and like the first 4 or 5 Ks were just running along the beach. So it was great. And then we hit the hills, but very nice.
Would have been a good way to de-stress as well, I guess. Fresh air, country air, running along a beach. Life doesn't get much better than that for a lot of people.
Living the dream.
Matthew, what about yourself?
Yeah, we had a great weekend up here in Brizzy, this one, boys. We had the wife's sister come over from London on Saturday morning, so she's here for 2 weeks. So she hadn't met the little fella, so she got introduced to him. So we had a bit of a family lunch with her side of the family, just to celebrate Father's Day, as her parents were overseas as well. So Father's Day, her mum's birthday. So that was all day Saturday, and this morning we went for a swimming lesson with one of the girls and got a little bit of cubby time in. So pretty busy weekend, but we had 2 days of glorious weather, so it was really, really nice.
Ticking all the boxes. Well, we've been fighting infection down here again. The little fella's sick, and the wife's got it as well. So it's just been all hands on deck. So it's pretty low sort of time when everyone's sick in the house, to be honest. It's just trying to get by as best you can, but you just have to keep a bit of the context that it's not really as bad as things can get. Like it's just a minor illness. It'll pass next week. It'll be all back to normal. But when it's happening, you kind of get a bit down about things, which kind of leads me to what I wanted to talk about tonight, which was Are You OK Day earlier this week. I was reading some stats earlier today, and that there's more than 8 deaths by suicide in Australia every day, and suicide is actually the leading cause of death for Australians between the age of 15 and 44 years of age. So we're all in that age bracket, and you're actually more likely to take your own life than die of a motor vehicle accident. So Are You OK Day is a super important day on the calendar, as are all the different mental health days which are out there. It's a bit more important than be a pirate day, which I think might be in August or something one year. Did you guys ask anyone if they're okay this year? Is that something you do? Do you do something like that?
Sidetrack, it's for those playing at home, September 19th is Pirate Day, but the
Fantastic.
I did this weekend. I asked a couple of guys I used to see quite frequently down in Melbourne, but not too much anymore, if they were okay. Only because, of Are You OK Day, I guess, that would sort of jog my memory to ask the question. The only, I guess, not downside, but side note to Are You OK Day is we should probably be asking that question a lot more than what we do. Like I know myself, I never really ask that question except on that Are You OK Day, because it triggers my memory to ask the question. But even these guys that I mentioned that I talk to quite regularly through the WhatsApp or something like that, it's only on that September 13th Are You OK Day where I have asked the question. So it's great that it's there to remind us. But yeah, we should definitely be asking a lot more. And those statistics you just rattled off there, Kane, when I heard those during the week, I was just blown away by it. I mean, what did you say? 1 in 8? Is that?
Yeah, more than 8 deaths by suicide in Australia each day, and
unbelievable.
Yeah, you're more likely to die via suicide, take your own life, than you are in a car accident. So yeah, there's really somber sort of statistics behind what really is an important issue. And I guess that what you mentioned before, Matt, is one of the good things about Are You OK Day. It is, be it an annual prompt, but it at least is a prompt for people to ask somebody else if they're doing okay, or maybe if they're not.
So I was reminded of Are You OK Day because basically in the office, our desktop screens went to Are You OK? So that was really cool that came around in the office and working in health, I suppose. It's a bit more prevalent with us. Also, especially being partnered with a psychologist, it is a bit scary in terms of the depression and anxiety and the suicide stats, especially with what you said there. I think I asked a couple of people, but I was probably a little bit complacent with it because I think I'm surrounded by it a little bit in health, but I still don't think we're anywhere near as having a conversation about it as we could be. And I think it's an amazing initiative to start it, but we've got a long way to go because just going, are you okay? And somebody says yes or no, or I know that if I was asked that quite a bit, I'd probably just be like, yeah, I'm okay, except for maybe a handful, if not even two or three people that I know, that I'd actually kind of open up with if there was some things going on there. So I think it's still a very hard thing to, especially men who are very prevalent to more and more take their own life as opposed to do something about it before. And I think that's one thing that women do so much better than men is just have that conversation with each other, and they get together and they talk. But one of the things that my partner can tell, and it's just a really small thing, if I go a week or two without playing indoor cricket on a Monday night with a great bunch of blokes that I play indoor cricket with and have done for about 4 or 5 years since moving over here in Melbourne, it's actually really noticeable. We don't go and play indoor cricket and go, how's everything going? Are you stressed? Are you this? Are you that? But it's just connecting with each other and just sort of all being around, and us as a team, I think we always move each other, or we get together for social things, or we get together quite a bit. So that kind of thing's really important, and it's a bit worrying, like working in the healthcare space. There's two things that I think are really good to talk about. In that, one, it's nice that millennials, so I know that this is a stat, that millennials believe that mental health is as important, if not more important, than physical health, which is very different from previous generations. So I think that's fantastic. And things like "Are you okay?" and all that kind of thing are probably part of that conversation and part of that movement. But the other thing is that middle age bracket of men, and also retiring men, that we're seeing now in health having massive psychological problems. Retirement basically through loss of identity because they're so tied to it with work from the older generations, but also that sort of 30 to 40-year-old age bracket where you get busy, you have some kids like you fellas, time becomes really, really poor, and you stop playing footy, or you stop playing this, or you stop just having those connection pieces. Yeah, it's quite surprising how much more that can increase some things. So just even having "Are you okay?" day, but just having those times where you just have outlets today are far and few in between, I guess, is what I'm saying.
Now, just taking that on board and then taking it maybe a step further on. So if you turn up to indoor cricket for sort of 2 or 3 weeks in a row, or one of the other guys turned up to indoor cricket 2 or 3 weeks in a row, and there was something kind of obviously wrong, they weren't themselves, they're a bit withdrawn, or they're a bit angry on the indoor cricket pitch, or as angry as you can get on an indoor cricket pitch, which I can imagine could be quite angry.
Hey, I've seen a few things happen.
So do you think in that instance, though, if you turned up for a couple of weeks in a row and you weren't yourself or somebody else did, that one of the boys would kind of maybe say something, mate, are you all right? Would that be something which would be prompted in that instance?
You can, but I think it's still done in a very manly way, if I can say that in italics, in that like we definitely notice, but and it's also, I play hockey and I do various other sporting things as well. So I think it's any one of them where you go, okay, something's not right with Johnny, and obviously I'm just using that as a fake name, but you kind of go, all right, you just get a bit more around him, but you do it in a very manly way to go, all right, yeah, I'm a bit worried about Johnny, and a couple of boys will have a chat about it, and then you'll organise like next weekend or the weekend after just to go to a bar and watch footy, or have a few beers and that, and you won't really chat about it like you do, and it comes out, oh yeah, a bit stressed at work or a bit stressed at home, or feeling some financial pressure or whatever it happens to be, but it sort of comes out 6 beers in, and you're watching a game of football and it's kind of there. But even just that interaction, I think, makes a really big effect. But I don't think we're at the point yet where, and this is me, myself personally, and I'd love to know what you guys think, but I'd find it really hard to really just go, yeah, no, it's all of this stuff. I just would find comfort in that and just being able to talk about it bit of a superficial level, like, oh yeah, work's this, or stress with that, or some money here, or whatever it happens to be, it does make you feel better. But I don't think we're at the point yet where I'd go, I think that, and I really think I'm spiraling down here, or anything like that. And I don't know what you guys think of that, which I still think is a lot further than what it was, say, 50, 60 years ago, where you walk into a pub and everyone just goes, yep, cool, yep, you know. But I don't know that we're at that conversational piece yet. But what you were saying, like, we would definitely pick up on it. And we do then turn around and go, what's happening? Do we all go and get a game, or do we all grab a dinner, or do something, basically, and make sure that we get them out of the house a bit more, I guess, is a big thing.
It's still a very delicate subject to talk about, isn't it? I mean, even, you know, with guys these days, we're getting a lot better, but from generations have gone by, I guess, men traditionally bottled up their emotions, perhaps. They weren't, you know, freely telling people what was truly going on. But as you said, Ryan, with the millennials coming through and their importance on mental health, I think, which is fantastic, because, you know, guys are they're not too afraid or, you know, embarrassed to sort of get out there and say, oh, look, if asked, or, you know, that they've, you know, what they're truly feeling, which I think that's the hardest bit, is sort of, yeah, like you said, drilling down, finding out what is wrong, because you can ask the question, are you okay? But if the response is going to be, yeah, everything's fine, you know, they may just be, you know, putting on a front to save face or whatever, or they just don't really want to delve into what truly is going on. So I think it's great that you can, yeah, identify that, and, you know, get Johnny out for a beer and whatnot. That even might just lift his spirits, and, you know, you're probably helping more than you know you are in that situation, which is fantastic. But I think we still have a very long way to go, like you said, Kane, straight from the get-go. But we're on our way, which is good.
Well, I'm glad millennials will generally drag the previous generations forward as well in via their sharing, because they're pretty good at sharing, the millennials, which I think is excellent, because it is something where slightly older generations struggle with. And I had a really good example a couple of weeks ago. One of my friends invited me to go to the football. Never been to the football with him before. It was kind of, there's a bit weird. So we're sitting there and just talking about football and stuff. And as an aside, like, oh, I often go out with mates, and I come home and the missus will be like, oh, what you guys talk about? And I go, oh, literally just sport and work. And, oh, how's X person? How's Y person's wife? I don't know. We just spoke about football and we spoke about work. Like, it's just nothing sort of anything more than that superficial thing. But he asked me along to go to the football, and we were just talking about the football and this and that. And he had a business idea. And then I'm going home, and I thought something didn't feel quite right. And I get a text message just saying, from him, just saying, oh, listen, I didn't know how to bring it up. My wife's left me. If he had brought that up during the game, I would have said, oh, don't worry about it, mate. Let's just burn the football and we'll go and get a drink, or we'll go and do this, we'll go and do that, we'll have a chat. But it was even hard to kind of bring up something that serious. But now that he's brought that up, and like there's a trigger point there, so I know that there's something wrong which was caused by something, I can at least have a conversation with him around that, or, you know, just check in a couple of times a week via text just to see how they're doing. And there's probably 2 or 3 people I'll do that with on a periodic basis who've had a life event, which means they've been a bit down, and just being able to check in with them, because I know is really helpful, you know, just see if they're okay on a more periodic basis than annually.
Yeah, I think, you know, go out and have a drink and sort of lift the spirits. I think it really is a lifting of the spirits, and it sounds like exactly that's what happened with you, Kane. And that's sort of been my experience with it as well, in that, you know, you caught up with him, you didn't really talk about anything, but then that sort of lifted the spirits, or sort of just opened up the space for him to go, you know, this is the problem. And I know that I had a similar experience probably earlier this year with one of my best mates, and I'll de-identify as much as I can because he's probably listening. But basically, I was catching up with him a lot more than I do usually, and we do usually catch up a bit because he is one of my best mates. I'm like, all right, well, he keeps hitting me up and that, which is awesome. It was great, because unfortunately I don't think we catch up enough with friends in the busy, crazy world that it is. And as I'm getting older, I'm finding that's harder and harder, which I think is echoed from everyone that I speak to, especially as more family commitments and other commitments happen. But we started catching up a bit more, and I was like, all right, and we'd go and just watch football, and we'd do this and we do that. We did that for about 2 or 3 catch-ups over probably a month period. And I'm just sitting there thinking, okay, cool, we're just catching up more. This is great. And then it sort of came out that he was under a bit of stress. And and he's previously had some mental health stuff, little bit around anxiety and whatnot. And he knows that I have as well, so he sort of feels a little bit more comfortable. But we're talking like a month before he's like, yeah, my anxiety's coming back, and I've got a few things around here, and I'm about to overstretch myself financially, and I'm feeling a real pressure and all this kind of thing. And it took a long time of just opening up that space, and usually it is. Unfortunately, it's a very manly thing, and I wish we could be a bit healthier with it, but it is usually a couple of beers, and it's got an alcohol component and usually a sporting component, so you feel a bit more manly with it. But yeah, then we sort of caught up, and we had one session, and it was just really, we could just go toe to toe and actually talk about this for real, and just be like, buddy, like, had no idea, following the week, the follow-up text messages and everything was happening, and that was making me feel really good. And then ultimately ended up working it out and going, yeah, we had to catch up, and you really just put it pretty square, and I just had to go and confront this thing. And it all worked out really well in the end, but it took so long to just open that space. And this is one of my best friends, and I kind of think on myself as well, I would be the same. Like, I don't think anyone would really know anything until it's like, oh, it's getting really close to breaking point. So I think it's really, really good that we're having the conversation, and hopefully even things like what we're doing here furthers the conversation. But moving it from, are you okay, to go, yeah, it's good, like supermarket checkout style, to, hey, if you need something, let me know, to then going, we're now really having a conversation around this. I think will be a transition, but it's a tough one. It's a very tough one.
He may have obviously understood why you're also a best mate, that you've been through a very similar process. So you'd have a level of understanding and context where maybe just talking to a mate who's just a mate, it might be harder for somebody to open up as well.
I think that is pretty true there, in that you want to go, like, humans inherently we go to people that we know or that we like, usually because they're a bit like us. So we sort of gravitate to ourselves, I guess, communities and whatnot. So knowing that somebody had done that, and we'd sort of had chats about it, like we've both previously been in the military and whatnot, and had some tough times there, and then other factors and that. So I think all of those components just add up to go, it can be a safe space. So yeah, I definitely think there's a gravitational component to it, but it still took like a lot longer than when I reflected on it I would have liked. Like, I would have thought that we were, at a point where he could have just picked up the phone and was like, hey buddy, just need to catch up tonight, shit's not good, as opposed to a month sort of just opening up that space. And I don't think we're at that point yet, but I think we're getting closer, and it'll be good when we do get there, I guess.
I think we might not be at that point yet, because it's quite hard to identify where there is a problem. When we're just asking that question, are you okay? I mean, both of you have talked about patterns. Brian, you spoke about being his usual self, or even TK, your partner, picking up if you've had a couple of weeks away from cricket or something. And then Kane, this guy that, never invites you to the footy, but has invited you. So you've picked up a pattern there. But is there any other ways that we can sort of, identify if there's something wrong, or something that's not quite right with someone, that we know we're asking the question, are you okay? And they're just giving a standard response, but can we take it further based on any other identifiers? Is there anything out there on the web, or is anybody saying anything, this is how to approach it, or just to take it that next step? Or are we just sort of waiting until, something?
There's an app.
Yeah, there's an app. I don't know. Yeah. Is there, where to from here, basically? Like, how do we take this to the next step where we can actually, maybe prevent this suicide rate that's out there, or reduce it? I don't know. Maybe we can't. Maybe we're doing all we can at the moment.
Well, I guess there's only two things that I can kind of suggest, and I'm certainly no expert on this. Like, we all have eyes to see if people's behaviour changes, and we all have mouths to be able to ask questions. That's all we can control. If somebody's not willing to open up or not ready to open up, then all you can do is be a little persistent without being overbearing. If you notice that they continually have a changed behaviour, and all you can do is ask the question. If somebody's not going to open up to you, hopefully they're opening up to somebody else and not bottling up somewhere where at some point they'll just explode. So yeah, just I just say try to see if anybody's behaviours change, and then just continue to ask the question.
That's a really good point you make there, Kane, because we're not very good at observing our own behaviours, but we are actually quite good at observing other people's. And even just not turning into a big thing or that, but just saying, hey, I noticed that you've been a bit like this, or you've done that. Is everything okay? They possibly will probably turn around and say to you, no, it's not, or whatnot. But even that conversation can get people thinking introspectively. And then they might not talk to you, but they might talk to their partner, or they might talk to somebody, because a lot of the times, like I know personally, I'll be doing something for a while and then somebody will turn around and be like, you haven't done this for a while, or you've been doing this and that's not like you. And I'm just like, oh, I wonder why that is, or whatever. And it might be stress or whatnot. But you can look internally and you can go, you can either fix it, which ultimately is preventing it getting to a bad point, which is the best cure is prevention. Or yeah, you do turn around and maybe it's not that person, but you've created an environment that allows for that conversation to actually commence, working out a way of creating environments. But I also think it's guys could do very well to talk to girls better, because females do this a whole lot better to us. And I know that there is just generally some things that I will talk to my partner about, and I don't know if you guys are the same, and possibly are, but that I just want to talk to a guy about. But a guy would say something or trigger something in there, and then I'll go and have that conversation, and it'll be a really good conversation. And I think, yeah, if guys can communicate with women a lot better, I think, and just even have female friends and that, females usually are more observant than us, I think that goes a long way to helping us as guys prevent that suicide rate, I guess.
Yeah, no, I remember when I was going through a really bad patch, the 2 or 3 people that I spoke to were females. I tried to speak to a guy about it, and he pretty much just fobbed me off. So I was trying to be as open as I could be. Like, I'm going through quite a bad patch here, and he said, I don't know what to say. I can't help you. But I had 2 or 3 sort of female friends at the time who took the time, listened in. Yeah, it's funny, the people who you open up to in certain circumstances wouldn't be the people you'd suspect that you would.
I guess that's the difference between males and females, isn't it? The girls tend to ask a lot more questions, and in this case it's fantastic, because they can get to the bottom of a problem, or they can trigger something in you that you hadn't even thought of, but they somehow nut it out, or can you sort of delve into your mind, I guess, and sort of coax it out of you, and get you talking about what may be wrong if there's an issue there. Whereas sort of like you said, Kane, guys tend to either they don't really know how to talk about it, or they just fobbed you off.
Maybe I picked the wrong guy. It was around 10 years ago, and he was a Gen Xer, so maybe it wasn't the right demographic. If it had been a millennial, admittedly, millennial then might have been about 4 years old, so I might have struggled with that. But maybe I just picked the wrong guy.
Maybe, but you might have had the conversation over the internet if it was a millennial. So we'll see. But I think that's a really good point, in that if we could just all be just that little bit more observant, that little bit nicer, and also just recognize that pretty much everyone at some point in their life will have some serious shit go on. So I think if we just can be a bit nicer in terms of the whole society, cutting some people some slack, like if someone's being a bit of a dick at work or whatnot, there might be something underneath that. So yeah, just generally letting a few more things go, because people deal with things that most people would have no idea about. And if we could do that a little bit more as well, and just make it okay, but also just talking about, I think one of the tough things that guys can do to make it really well is also just let your mates know when you have had bad times, or you've had this. Just if you know of something like that, or depression or anxiety, or just start creating that conversation and opening up and going, yeah, a couple of years ago I had a bad, like what you were saying, Kane, a couple of years ago you had a bad time, and that sort of thing. I think that makes it more comforting for another person to turn around and then go, oh, I had no idea about that about you. That's really good. Actually, I'm not having a great time right now. And I think guys don't do that very well. And I think if we could all do that a bit more, we could be a bit more vulnerable and a bit kinder and a bit, nicer and whatnot. We might go some way to to helping this serious problem, obviously.
No, it is. It's a really serious topic, and yet depression and everything which goes along with it can be triggered by all manner of different things. Something really small can trigger a really big reaction. So, like we've been talking about all through today, just create that environment for people. Just observe what you can with regards to behaviour change, and ask the question. That's all we can control. And hopefully that environment means that somebody will open up somewhere and get whatever is inside of them out. It was a serious topic this week, and that just about wraps it up for another week of Daddy Eats Last. Thanks for listening, and we'll be back next week for another episode, or should I say serving, of Daddy Eats Last. How's that for a dad joke? Catch you all next week.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.